Dr. Anthony Fauci, who's the head of the NIH infectious diseases, delivered a sobering message to Congress and saying bluntly, we're failing to meet capacity and do what we should as far as testing is concerned.
And all this has rocked financial markets around the world, the worst sell-off on Wall Street since the financial crisis in 2008.
As the crisis sweeps the nation, the toll is growing by the hour.
Tara's marriage ended this past August, a reflection of a painful pandemic trend that is quietly rippling across the country.
One officer looks over as 3 of his colleagues restrain Floyd, who is lying face down on the ground in handcuffs.
Overnight, Minneapolis on fire. Protesters leaving an auto parts store in flames. Others seen looting a local Target.
And many others found their alcohol habits changed drastically during the pandemic.
Now to another grim milestone, the world surpassing 1 million deaths from the coronavirus.
What we're seeing is increasing rates of a whole range of mental health problems, anxiety, depression, for sure.
New numbers out today show nearly 1.5 million Americans filed for unemployment last week. So what does that number mean? Well, it is higher than we were expecting. It means people are still losing their jobs because of this pandemic. Weekly jobless claims had never hit that million mark before the end of March, and now they just can't seem to fall below it.
Overnight, more than 600 new cases reported, bringing the worldwide total to more than 83,000.
A hot mess inside a dumpster fire, inside a train wreck.
Anxiety's high.
The stress kind of just kept piling on. I was kind of upset and depressed.
Given the early evidence we have on this new variant of the virus, the potential risk it poses, it is with a very heavy heart. I must tell you, we cannot continue with Christmas as planned.
These people are not going to take it any longer, because you'll never take back our country with weakness. You have to show strength and you have to be strong. And if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore.
It's no wonder we're just a bit stressed out. We started this year by committing to build a championship season in 2021 at home, in the workplace, with everyone, everywhere. We then moved past New Year's resolutions to create tangible, specific goals to achieve our best in 21. Almost every one of us create goals to get in shape. It's the #1 New Year's resolution. In today's program, we're going to own up to those goals to get in shape, but we're going to dig in to what it really means to get in shape. You see, if we really want to get in shape, we need to renew our minds. Yes, we need to renew and make good on our promise to get our bodies in shape. And finally, we need to get in shape spiritually. Mind, body, spirit. If we make the choice to stop doing the things that are keeping us from our best and start doing the things that will make us a little bit better every single day, we can build a championship season in 2021. Today, we invited 4 experts to help you get your mind, your body, and your spirit in the best shape ever. Dr. Ward, a licensed psychologist who's helped thousands of people improve their mental health. Dr. Rodriguez, a distinguished physician, to discuss what we can do to achieve our best physical health. Bobby Aldridge, a personal trainer who's helped to transform hundreds of bodies. And Dr. Ike Reighard, a pastor who tends to the spiritual needs of his congregation while serving those in Metro Atlanta that otherwise fall through the cracks. 4 the best guests ever to help us get in shape, mind, body, and spirit. Today, it's the heart of winter. It's cold and dreary outside. I grew up in South Florida, so I'm much more partial to the warmer weather. If we make the choice today and go to work, just as the seasons will soon change, we can move out of this season better than ever. Spring, it'll offer new life, and so will the vaccines. By the time the next season arrives this summer, your mind, your body, and your spirit will create momentum, And that momentum, in combination with the vaccines and the reopening of the economy, will offer maybe, just maybe, your best summer season ever. If we keep our promises, by the fall, we'll be going into the fourth quarter with a chance to finish 2021 as champions at home, in the workplace, everywhere, with everyone. It's our choice. Let's go to work. Dr. Annie Ward, welcome back to Personal and Professional Best.
Yes.
I imagine, based on the last year, your business has been pretty good.
It's never been better.
How much has it grown?
More than doubled.
Yeah, so there's certain businesses that I cheer and I say, wow, that's great. And I want to be happy for you. But
yes.
Of course, I know on the other end of those phone calls and those sessions,
yeah,
there's people that are in pain right now.
Yeah, it's bittersweet. Definitely.
Well, listen, why do they come? What are the three reasons why people reach out to you?
We're still seeing a lot of stress. There's a lot of just unknowns. There's a lot of pressure trying to adjust to work at home. So stress, certainly. I think secondly is essentially people are experiencing a lot of depression and loneliness. Our social outlets aren't what they used to be. And so there's just the incredible amount of just general sense of loneliness, and I'm not connected to people, and that's distressing. And then lastly, marriages. When you're cooped up at home for a long period of time, apparently conflict can happen. So those are the three biggest right now.
So all of those things were true before, meaning relationships were problems and people are stressed. Mm-hmm. But the world that we live in today just seems to, let's say, give more cause and give more reason. And there's more places to report it with social media, kind of 24/7, 365 as a new news channel. What are the three best recommendations you can make for our audience today? They're all committed to building a championship season in their life, at home, and in the workplace. Give us the three things to affect their mindset so they have a chance to do that.
Absolutely. Number one, I think it's actually very helpful to identify what are the thoughts you're actually having. You know, we think about them, but I like to coach people write them down, put them on paper so you can see them and evaluate them and frankly feel the thoughts. Number two, I think it's really helpful to then share your thoughts with other people. You know, as humans, we all have a confirmation bias. We're going to have blind spots and miss things, and we have a negativity bias, meaning that our thinking tends to be negative, pessimistic, cynical in nature. And if I'm sharing it with other people, I want them to speak into me. I want them to challenge my thinking and essentially elevate my thinking to something that's more focused on goals and more positive. And then lastly, just continually ask for feedback. How am I doing? And get that accountability in your thinking.
You know, one of the things that I've always told people is that the people that you hang around with will help shape your point of view about life, right? So I try to hang around people, not that I don't help others, but I try to hang around with people that are generally bent on positive and on being inspirational about making the most out of their life. That said, tell us how you keep your mindset right.
Well, I try to follow my own advice. I mean, in the sense that I have constructed what I call my personal advisory board. That's what I've named it. And it's a constellation of men whom I trust and who I've asked to speak into my life. And I'm sharing everything with them. My insecurities, my fears, my doubts, my worries, my negativity. And they speak into me and they elevate and they encourage me to stay on the road that I know it's going to be better for me.
So they're not only your friends, but they're also your accountability partner.
Exactly.
You know, so much of what we do in life, if we're traveling alone, if we invite others who care for us, genuinely love us into our lives, to pour into us, that's what's helping you. Because as you finish your day and are having dinner with your wife, you're talking about all of the problems that you've just absorbed, basically, right?
Yes.
So you're the front line of defense and getting all of the problems that people are experiencing in the world. And of course, you face all those same things yourself. You have children and a wife. And and COVID and all the things that go along with it impact you.
That's right.
So what's the best advice? People really want to get their mindset right. Watching the news, what we know about the news is it's 90% negative.
Yep.
And social media is a forum now where half the time people are trying to win arguments that are unwinnable arguments, right?
Yes.
They're just venting their stress. What is the thing that you do to get your mindset right, like to start the day or during the course of the day? Where do you go?
I actually like to start the day with being quiet, not getting busy. I'm not checking my phone the first thing when I wake up. I'm actually just taking time to reflect on the day, possibly my to-do list, but more importantly, since I'm a person of spiritual bent, I'm connecting with God. God, what would you have for me today? Center my mind, get my heart right to do the work that you have for me.
And from my vantage point, what I do is I do the same. I read the scripture first, take care of my dogs, but I read the scripture because I want to gain control again that day of my thoughts, of my actions and my words. And the scripture gives me a way to remind me of what I'm committed to and what I'm committed to being as a human being.
Yep.
And then I can turn on my email or turn on my business, if you will, because I feel prepared to be able to deal with it. So I think your point about first thing in the morning, right, to get quiet time, whatever that leads you to, whether it's like you and I with our faith in God, or whether it's just reading inspirational communications, just to get our mindset right. And maybe don't do what the average American does, 3 hours of TV a day and an hour of social media, right? That's an awful lot of time to give up into the negative. Let's talk about boundaries. Yeah. You think it's a good idea that we set boundaries?
Absolutely. And they're almost never natural. They're artificial, but you have to be intentional about putting those in place. I think of like if I eat candy, right? I love candy. I love sugar, but I have to be very intentional about how much I consume of it. And so if I don't have a boundary, it's going to go very badly for me over time.
Right?
And it's the same for other things like social media or just ingestion of media in total, right? If I'm constantly just viewing things that ultimately are negative in nature, I'm going to walk away affected by that. And I don't want that.
Yeah, if we're going to have a championship mindset, we need to have boundaries with regard to social media.
Yes, sir.
I want all of you to know that that this past December, Dr. Andy Ward and myself decided that he was going to be a permanent member of the Supreme Lending team. No, he doesn't work here, but he's available to our 225 souls every day. All they need to do is reach out in confidence to Dr. Ward, get on the calendar so that they can talk to someone who can give them a way to get their mindset right so they can build a championship season. And I want to offer to all of you in the spirit and the mission that is supreme. We serve others before self. The first 5 folks that reach out by email to Andy@wardpsychology.com. Andy@wardpsychology.com. The first 5 folks that do, it'll be completely in confidence. You'll have an opportunity to spend an hour with my good friend, Dr. Andy Ward. Dr. Ward, thanks for coming again today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ward, for kicking us off so that we can get in the best shape of our lives. All right, so he helped us with our mind. Our mindset's so important if we're going to be in the best shape and build a championship season. By the way, you can't get more than 24 hours in a day. Don't spend 3 hours in front of a TV watching news that feeds you negative information. And if you're on social media, just be there for family and for business. All right, let's go to work on our bodies, shall we? We got work to do. Dr. David Rodriguez, welcome back to Personal and Professional Best.
Thank you very much, Pat. It's always a pleasure to be here.
So let's get started with your expertise. The last time that you and I visited was about this time last year, and we talked about COVID, but at that time, no one really knew what COVID was going to mean, and now we certainly do, right? It's affected our mind, and it's affected our body and our soul. So let me ask some questions if I could, and we'll get to COVID in just a minute. First question, should adults get physicals annually?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think there's any question about it. It provides a very beneficial baseline to one's health, and it allows us to monitor things over time. It gives the patients a chance to strengthen the physician-patient relationship, establishes trust, It allows me to know what kind of health preferences you have before you get sick. We like to have those discussions, before you get sick, so we kind of know where you stand.
Yeah, the big principle is to be able to monitor and be preventative, your advice, as opposed to you having to try to fix people once they're sick.
That's right. We're trying not to be reactive. We're trying to be proactive. And so we like to try to, fix things before they happen.
So a pretty simple question, but I think it's important for our audience because we're just trying to give them today some high-level priorities that they can take with them. If you were giving advice to our audience and they were measuring and monitoring one thing about their health, just one thing, what would it be?
Yeah, it would be the body mass index. It would essentially be your weight relative to your height. I mean, that is a critical piece of data to determine your overall health and your risk for conditions, including COVID, which we'll talk more about. You got to maintain a healthy lifestyle, get enough sleep. You need to exercise regularly. You need to avoid excessive tobacco and alcohol intake. You need to eat sensibly, high vegetables, low fat. It's kind of all the stuff your mom taught you. She was right.
Yeah, she was right. Hey, one thing, because me and you've talked about this in the past, about my weight and where it should be, and I'm happy to report to you today, being accountable to my accountability partner, that I'm right at 160 pounds. But my wife has often said, Pat, you look too thin. And I've said, Lisa, I think you're too accustomed to looking at other people who are too heavy. And that has now become the norm. So we got to eat right. We got to diet, exercise. We got to have our body mass index at the right place. If Americans would have followed that advice and then COVID would have shown up, the outcomes that we have today, we're well aware of the statistics. What would the outcomes have looked like alternatively?
Oh, yeah, I don't think there's any question about it. I mean, the primary risk factor for COVID is body mass index. And a year ago, epidemiologists had already warned us that because of the epidemic of type 2 diabetes and obesity in the United States, unfortunately, we were primed to have a significant number of fatalities with COVID, and that has come to pass. So, had we been more proactive and been more physically active and gotten our weight down, there would have been less deaths. I don't think there's any question about it.
Yeah, and the advice now then, because I don't hear it nationally being talked about, like by the voices, if you will, of our nation that are talking about COVID. But if we don't take the lesson with us, we're likely to learn it again at some point. And no one wants to do that, losing a loved one or their own health. So this idea of being overweight feels like it's sometimes political, and so people don't talk about it. I don't judge anyone, but what I know is true in talking to you is that if we allow ourselves to carry excess weight, it means that we're not eating right and we're compromising our health. It's just a matter of not if, it's a matter of when. And COVID wound up being a big when for everyone.
Absolutely. It was like the perfect storm. I think what's underappreciated is that the weight has a dramatic impact on your immunity. So that, if you're not able to ventilate properly, have normal oxygen levels, you're at high risk for all kinds of infections, COVIDs, common colds, influenza, pneumonia, bronchitis. I mean, the list goes on and on. So I agree 100% with what you're saying. We need to wake up to that fact.
Yeah, and the good news is it's all about habits. We can change on the margin starting tomorrow, eat a little bit less, eat better, exercise a little bit more, and over time, just pick up those habits. And a year from now, when we revisit with you, we could have an entire community that's watching today whose BMI is just lower, in which case they have a better chance to defend themselves going forward, not just against COVID, but against any type of disease that would be out there that would be affecting people. I got a last question for you on the topic of COVID, and that is, there's been a lot of discussion about the vaccine itself. And of course, there's a whole heck of a lot of people that are anxious and waiting in line. But there's also people that have some concerns about it. Your advice in terms of if they get their number called and they have the opportunity to get the vaccine, what say you, Dr. Rodriguez?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you have to get the vaccine. It's a no-brainer. The talk about herd immunity, the idea that you need 70 to 90% of the population immune, either from having had the disease or from getting the vaccine. It looks like right now that immunity from having the disease may only last about 6 months or so. So what that means is everybody's got to get the vaccine. I mean, again, the way I've seen it in the past is people who are not interested in vaccines are people that don't have a good understanding of history and how polio, went down back in the 40s, because anybody who remembers that understands that these diseases are preventable, and we're going to make a significant impact on decreasing deaths by having everybody immunized. So yes, the answer is absolutely yes.
And is it true that COVID's not going away? It will, in fact, version itself, right? So that's what we've been hearing about recently. And we're getting into another season now with COVID. So that's pretty normal that it would be versioning. So the vaccine will give us the herd ultimately. So everyone needs to really get after it. Is that true, though, about the idea that it will just version, it won't go away?
Yeah, that's correct. It's going to be very similar to the influenza vaccine. So flu shots today involve 4 different strains. There's 2 type A's and 2 type B's. Every year they determine what is the predominant strain in the community. Let's put that in the vaccine so we can have the majority of the people immunized. I suspect it'll be the same thing happening with the COVID. We've already identified 2-3 separate mutations. As the vaccines evolve, these mutations will be put into the new vaccines, and more people will be protected from the newer mutations. So yeah, that's how I see it happening as well.
So last question, outside of COVID symptoms, has your profile in terms of the people that are calling you, has it changed at all during this COVID season? Meaning what you normally would receive patient calls about, is any of that changing? Are we hearing more that would be maybe mental in its, the mind, or can you help us with that?
Yeah, I mean, so it's interesting because when the pandemic first started, there was a big push to sort of keep everybody home and keep them away from the hospitals, away from the doctors, that sort of thing. Interestingly, what happened 2 to 3 months later, there was a spike in heart attacks, spike in strokes, spikes in undiagnosed cancer, people who needed to have their colonoscopy, needed to have their mammography done. And so, that was kind of a lesson learned. We kind of went from one extreme to the other. We said, okay, don't go to the hospital. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, you need to come back to the hospital because all of the regular conditions still happen, even in the midst of a pandemic. So you have all the regular medical conditions that we need to deal with, which we've now gotten back to. And then you have the concerns regarding the pandemic, COVID fatigue, anxiety, mental health issues. I mean, everybody's burned out. I mean, you have to find a way to persevere, and you have to find a way to be positive and, see the light at the end of the tunnel. And the light at the end of the tunnel is the vaccine. That's what we need to be focused on.
Well, thank you for everything you've done for me and for my family. And thank you for everything you do with your patients. I know it's been a difficult time to be in your industry over the last year. And thanks for the advice today. So number one thing, when people show up next year, we have you back on the program, get your BMI in line. Correct?
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
All right, my friend. Hey, thanks for being a part of our program, David.
Thank you. Thank you, Pat.
Peace.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Dr. Rodriguez, for the great information. My key takeaway, not only is our BMI the single biggest indicator of our overall health, it's also the single biggest indicator of our likely outcome should we contract COVID. Get your BMI right. It's more important than ever that we get in our best physical shape. And to help us drill down a little bit deeper into diet and exercise, I went for a walk with my personal trainer, Bobby Aldridge. In shape, Bobby, I just finished talking to Dr. David Rodriguez to make sure that we know exactly what we need to do to get from not working out, not being in shape. The number one resolution that Americans have is to get in shape. So we talked to David Rodriguez. He gave me a green light. Okay, so you need to talk to your doctor, get a green light that you can start working out. Now we show up with a professional like you, Bobby. What's the first thing you measure when you meet a new client?
Well, we do assessments. We, of course, do weight, but more importantly, we do BMI and body fat. That's going to tell us, height, weight ratio. Are you overweight for your height? Or are you underweight? And body fat will give you a little bit more precise as far as body composition, body fat versus muscle. And we'll know exactly what someone needs to lose to be their healthiest person.
Well, you know what? We just heard from Dr. Rodriguez that the number one thing for him is BMI, right? Because being at the right weight gives you the best chance to be healthiest long term. Remember that. You got to get to the weight. So you meet with your client and you measure them, and then you define outcomes with them, like where do they want to get to? You know where they are, where do they want to get to, and when do they want to get there, and what's the plan? So we know that. We know it's going to involve diet, and we know it's going to involve exercise. So let's talk diet first, can we?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's say, if we ate a healthy diet today, just one day, tell me what that looks like. What's the menu look like?
It's going to be limited sugar, limited refined carbohydrates. So you wouldn't want to start with a sugary cereal, right? You might start with eggs, egg whites, a scrambler, something like that. Some healthy carbs like oatmeal. You might have a snack a few hours later, which is just a fruit, right? Just a little 80 to 100 calorie fruit, and maybe not chips. Lunch, let's don't do burgers and fries per se. Maybe it's a grilled chicken salad with the right dressing, perhaps, right?
Yeah.
Later in the day, a couple almonds, maybe a handful of almonds, always good. And then dinner, let's go a baked fish, some steamed veggies, and a light side, could be wild rice, something like that. So you see where there's not refined carbs, low sugar, low in the fat, and high in quality proteins, vegetables.
And
fruits.
no late night visits to the pantry.
That can get you right there.
There's no broccoli in there waiting for you later in the evening, right?
So you usually don't grab that at 11.
What about water, Bobby? What about intake of water as opposed to soda and things along those lines?
So no calorie, of course, water, right? Won't contribute to over fatness. So like sodas can do, they're notorious for that. But water, I believe most people are chronically dehydrated because of caffeine in coffee, caffeine in sodas, alcohol, all that will dehydrate you. But if you drink at least a half ounce of water per body weight, so for me, 200 pounds, I do 100 ounces of water per day, I'll be properly hydrated.
What do we have here? So the number one goal is to get in shape, but it's really about losing weight in most cases. And what we know is 3,500 calories will lose you a pound. So if we download 250 calories a day, downshift, take 250 calories a day in less,
top and diet,
and we exercise, just like we were just doing, walk, 20 minutes, we burn 250, we've got 500 in a day, we got 3,500 in a week. Eat less and eat better. Talk to us about some choices we can make if we want to lose weight.
So a lot of people say Chick-fil-A, right? I'm going to make a healthy choice today. I'm going through the healthiest fast food joint. That's Chick-fil-A. A lot of people will grab option one. I think it's going to be the regular old Chick-fil-A, the famous, the best. Chick-fil-A sandwich, fry, soda. Let's just look next first. Go a little healthier. Grilled chickens, a little bit of fruit, diet lemonade. That's a better choice, right? For sure the healthiest choice around. Grilled chicken salad. But do you go a light dressing or do you go a heavier dressing? Let's just look at calories real quick. This guy, 1260. 1260. You're almost a full day.
Full day.
Right there, right? B, down to 420 because you went char grill, fruit, and diet lemonade. The last one could be the healthiest. Maybe. The salad itself, 310. If I went a light balsamic, 20 calories. If I go avocado, add 320. So this guy goes up to 630 already. So this wouldn't be the best if you went bad salad dressing. So it's just what you choose here and
here's
there.
the most important point for all of us to know. You don't have to go radical. On the margin, if you just make some choices, like trade off the Coke, trade out of the French fries, right? Just do that. Start there. You'll start bringing your caloric intake down. And then if you get out, do some walking, do some cardio, you're going to wind up burning calories and magically, not really, scientifically, more
Drop
like
the weight.
You're going to start dropping some weight. Hey, Bobby, do you measure calories daily?
I don't measure now, but I have. So in the beginning, we have clients measure for at least their first week to get a feel for how much calories am I having at breakfast, lunch, and dinner with my typical diet. So once you get a feel for it, you don't have to measure every day. It can get cumbersome to measure every day. Although measuring and weighing will keep you on track, some people just don't want to do it, but at least inspect what you're ingesting and know how much you're eating.
You need to go on a financial diet. You need to measure that as well, take down every detail. Bobby kind of knows a little bit about what he's eating now, just like I do, and about how many calories they are. But listen, if you're just getting started, make sure you take the time. Make sure you take the time to record it. If you do it for a couple of weeks, you'll get in a pattern of understanding what exactly you're taking in. And if you're really serious really serious about writing a championship story in 2021, you'll follow the instructions that you're getting today. Cardio is important. Talk to us. How often and how long?
So we want to do activity daily, some sort of activity. If it is a walk like we're doing right now, that might be daily for 30 to 45, maybe 60 minutes. But if I just sprint this hill up and down, that might be 10 to 15 minutes. So depending on your intensity is how long you want to do it. But I'd say most days of the week from 30, as many as 90 if it's a hike or bike or walk.
So we diet, and then we do some cardio, and you don't need to kill yourself. Just get started, get moving every single day. Strength. Do we need to strength train?
We got to do strength training. We got to. It not only makes you look better, feel better, but you're stronger, it's healthier, it builds bone strength, it burns more calories around the clock. If I'm doing cardio, I'm burning calories when I'm doing it. I build a little more muscle around the clock, so I'm burning more calories that way.
So if we're mind and we're body and we're spirit, in the mind, when you start looking better, working out, right, you're going to think better, right, like a champion does. If you start eating better, you're going to slim down, you're going to feel better. You know what, Bobby? I think it's time for me and you to go do a workout. What do you think? Hey, listen, you guys, work at it, okay? Get started right now so you can write a championship story this year. Finally, the end of the workout. So you want to build a championship season this year, and so do I. And we've got to get our mindset right, which we've already worked on. We got to get our body right, both diet and exercise. Check the box. We've worked on that too. The last thing we need to do, arguably the most important thing we need to do, is we need to get our spirit right. That's what we need to do. And I've got just the guy, the expert that can help us with that, Dr. Ike Reighard. And I can't wait to go visit my good friend and get my spirit right. The problem we've got is that it's a long way across town and it's Friday afternoon, so we're gonna have to take a shortcut. Supreme Man's got his mind right, he's got his body right, now he's about to get his spirit right. Are you kidding me? I'm gonna blow right by traffic. That was the best flight. No traffic at all, made great time. You could fly like that too. Join us at Personal Professional Best. I didn't get a outfit change for Dr. Ike. Hey, we're here today at Piedmont Church with my good friend, Dr. Ike Reighard, who I call the resource in my life. Who better to talk to us about how to work out our spiritual lives than Dr. Ike? He's the Piedmont Church pastor and he's CEO of Must Ministries, and I'm so excited to be here. Hey, Dr. Ike, what's happening?
Patrick, I'm doing well. It's good to meet
you
with a socially distanced welcome today at Piedmont Church. We're glad you're here.
Well, welcome back to Personal and Professional Best, my friend.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, we're so happy to have you. Dr. Ike, this year, our theme at Supreme is building a championship season in 2021 at home, in the workplace, everywhere, with everyone. And today, we're here to talk about mind, body, and for you, spirit. We think you're the very best resource, if you will, to talk to us about our spiritual lives. So why don't we start out talking about our spiritual lives to undress the mystery. What is that? What is this spirit thing?
Well, when the Bible talks about it, it refers to the fact that we have a body, we have a soul, and we have a spirit. So we refer to that as being a tridimensional being. And of course, your body is your physical body, and the Bible teaches us to take care of that body. As a matter of fact, it says, our body is the very temple of God. So we're supposed to make sure that we're doing the right things. And I think this guy represents that today.
I'd say so.
Absolutely. Yep. And then the Bible says that we have a soul. And the soul's that eternal part of us. It's that great mystery that inside of us, it's that life force. And then when you get to the spirit, well, the spirit is what helps to connect you to God. Our spirit is that which, when it comes to Christianity, we believe is that life force that's going to be able to live eternally with God. So the Spirit is very, very important.
Yeah, and let's not get scared of this thing called the Bible. It's the best-selling book in history, the most read book in history. It's got some really great wisdom in there, and the Spirit is one. And the way I've always thought about it is the Spirit is like this, the character and the values that drive me. It's like my rudder in my life. Hey, Dr. Ike, there's a study that was done recently that churchgoers, and by the way, we're not here today to sell you to go to church, but you're welcome to come to Piedmont Baptist Church if you'd like. But the study said that people that are regular churchgoers, they live 7 years longer, they have lower blood pressure, they smoke and drink less, they give more, and they commit less crimes. Sounds like the world would be a better place if more people made a regular visit.
Absolutely. And I am here to sell you on the benefits of church, I can assure you. Because, Pat, there's so many different elements to it. You know, one of the main things that people, as they get older, that they talk about becomes an issue in their life is loneliness. Because, you know, sadly, the older you get after your children are grown, your world begins to narrow down. And we're in a very mobile society today. And it's not like years gone by when a family might have 4 children and all 4 of them would live there in the same town and be there together. Now there's someone living in Spokane. There's somebody else in Washington, D.C. There's another one in upstate New York. And maybe there's one out in Texas. And so you don't have as tight a physical nuclear family as you used to have. And that's where church can play such a huge role in helping to be able to alleviate that loneliness.
Sure. So businesses, ours does, but most businesses don't create kind of a family intentionally environment. And church does work to do that. And so it's a great opportunity to be in community with others, which we all, especially now with COVID, know what we're missing by not being in community with others. You know, our program, Dr. Ike, is about working the mind, working out the mind, making sure that we're exercising it and getting the right things ingested and working out the body, the physical part of us and working out the spirit. My daily workout includes reading scripture in the morning for about 20 minutes. I do that every day. And at the end of the year, I finish that great book again. And what I've gleaned out of the book, and see, because you're the expert, right? The 3 messages are relationship messages that I take with me. Pretty simple. Serving others before self, living selflessly, sacrificing for others, giving something up of value of yourself to benefit another human being. And then finally, it's forgiveness. And I can assure you, churchgoer or not, believer or not, if your spouse, significant other, or anyone in your life was told by you that you want to serve them, and you want to sacrifice for them, and you'll always forgive them no matter what, they would probably be okay. What do you make of my assessment of that great book?
Well, I think it's a great assessment. And by the way, you know, Pat, it's not how many times you've been through that book, it's how many times that book has been through you. And you've touched on the major themes that are there in Scripture. You know, the sacrifice, you know, from the very beginning, we understand the sacrifice that God made in sending His Son here for those of us that embrace Christianity. And I know not everyone embraces that, but for us, we do. And then also you talked about the fact that you've got an opportunity to be able to serve others. And to me, when you do something altruistically, it calls you to your highest and your best. When you do something for someone that can't possibly do something for you, you're actually doing one of the very best things that you could ever do for yourself. And then forgiveness, oh my goodness. When I'm doing marriage counseling or premarital counseling and someone says, well, I do not forgive easily, I think, whew, it's going to be a rough relationship, because forgiveness is the key relationship issue in the Bible. And you know, C.S. Lewis said, forgiveness is a lovely thought until you have someone you need to forgive. Then it's not nearly as lovely, but It's all there for you. All of those things are teaching you sacrifice. You're looking out for other people. Serving, you're taking the opportunity to go out and to meet needs of other people. Forgiveness, you're building relationships. And if you took just those core three things and you really implemented them along with the attitude of love in every one of those categories, you're going to have an irresistible personality. People are going to be drawn to you. They're going to want to be around you in the workplace. And so all of those things that Scripture talk about, they're always for our betterment. And God calls us to be our highest and our best and not to go to our lowest and our least. And there's always that pull in this world, because there's a duality that's in the universe. There's light and there's dark. There's good and there's evil. And there's always those push and pulls in our life. And what side of our spirit that we feed is going to determine which side of our personality is going to win out. The proverbial devil on one shoulder and the angel on the other shoulder. Which side is going to win out in all of your relationships, in the way that you live life, in the way you treat your children, in the way you treat your spouse. All of those things come into play that you've talked about. And if you use sacrifice and you use serving one another and you forgive one another, wow, that's a threefold cord that wouldn't be easily broken.
And by the way, if you're not a believer or churchgoer, just hear what's being said, which is that serving another person, sacrificing for another person, forgiving another person is really the fundamental foundation. Whether or not you're a churchgoer or a believer or not, that will build long-term, meaningful relationships in your life. And that's what we want for you. We want you to work out your spirit in those ways. Whether or not you go to a building or have a denomination you claim, you can do these things. So let's talk to those folks that are not believers, that still spiritually want to find a place to give. You're not only the pastor of Piedmont Church, but you're CEO of Must Ministries in Cobb County, the largest nonprofit that is helping women. Tell us about the service that's being done there by the folks at Must.
In a normal year, we would serve between 32 to 34,000 unique individuals. But last year with COVID, we served 179,000 unique individuals. And when the rent moratorium and the eviction moratoriums go off at the end of March this year, you will see a tsunami of need. That's what you're going to flip on the TV every night, and you're going to be hearing about how many people are in a tough situation. Well, it's organizations like Must that are there in those tough situations. So we're there to help them get a job, and we always help them to have respect and dignity. And of course, you guys at Supreme have been incredible partners, and so many of the realtor community have helped us tremendously there this year. So we help to feed people, we help to clothe people, we help to shelter people, we help people to get jobs. Those are the things that we do, but we couldn't do it without our partners. So this year, Pat, you guys are always great about helping us have toys. We served over 5,000 children this year and helped them to be able to have toys during a pandemic year when it was tough on their parents. And if you made $40,000 or less a year in your salary, in Atlanta, about 40% of those people were without jobs. That, to me, is a part of your spirit. See, when the Bible says your spirit, it's talking about your emotions. It's talking about where you make your decisions. Oftentimes, if you read a verse in the Bible, it'll say something about your heart. And it's not talking about that blood pumper that we have in there that keeps us alive. It's talking about how do you make your decisions? Where do you make your choices? Why are you making those choices? And so the Bible teaches us one really cool proverb. It says, watch over your heart with all diligence, because that's the place where you make your choices. That's where your emotions come from.
You know what? Thank you for the Must idea, because listen, if you don't go to church, cool. But you're going to have to work out your spiritual life if you're going to get a championship season built in 2021. And what I want you to hear loud and clear is you can go to church and iron sharpens iron, and you'll get your spirit renewed by being there. But if you decide not to, Must Ministries, Habitat for Humanity that we do every year, a home. All of the people I know, when they go and serve in the community, when they go and serve, when they give up, when they serve and they sacrifice their time for another human being who can't pay them back, you know what they do? They'll tell you at the end of the day that it was difficult to make the decision to do it, to give up for themselves something else, but then they feel like they've spiritually exercised, and just like exercise on our body, it never gets any better. So mind, body, spirit. We need to work at all three if we're going to build a championship season. Dr. Ike, thank you so much for being the resource in my life and for being a part of Personal and Professional Best.
Honored, my friend. Thanks for what you're doing for so many people, because you really are making a difference, and that's what you want to do in this world. That's your mission. And my mission is to make sure that I leave something that's going to live on after me, that's going to impact people for generations to come. And for me, I'm a communicator. I communicate faith, hope, and love. Those three things. But the greatest of them is love, and I love you, friend.
There's an old saying, it's always darkest before dawn. The saying actually was first expressed in a poem by Thomas Fuller in 1650. The intention was good, to offer hope when our lives seem darkest. It was intended to encourage us to believe that the darkness of night of life would soon be replaced by a new day and a new light, a new season, a championship season. Our lives, our homes, our workplaces, our neighborhoods, even our nation can sometimes feel dark and a little scary. This is one of those times. If the light represents hope, and if we all prefer the light, then I challenge you, I challenge all of us to choose the light, to choose to be the light at home, in the workplace, everywhere, with everyone. There's another old saying. Actually, it's not that old of a saying, as we just started saying when we created the Personal and Professional Best program, and that is this, that it's not where you are in life that matters, it's where you're going that matters most. If we're going to step out of the darkness and enter the light at home and in the workplace, we need to decide to stop doing some things, and we need to decide to start doing some things. We need to stop watching 3 hours of TV per day, and we need to stop an additional 1 hour that we invest every day in social media. 4 hours a day. 25% of our waking hours does not need to be invested in feeding our minds negative food. We need to stop eating too much, and we need to stop eating foods that make us unhealthy. We also need to stop making excuses about not having enough time to exercise. We just gave you 4 hours of your life back to exercise. We also need to stop starving our spirit. Our spirits need to be fueled just like our minds and our bodies. Instead, we need to start doing what champions do. We need to feed our mind through our eyes and our ears, what we read and what we watch and what we listen to. Images and words that build the mindset of a champion. We need to feed our bodies less food, but the best food. And we need to work to strengthen our bodies and our hearts by exercising, by sweating. And then we need to take a big gulp of water to replenish the fluids we lost exercising. Finally, we need to feed our spirits. Go back to church. You'll live 7 years longer. Okay, if you don't like the church option, then select another option to feed your spirit. Read a daily inspiration. Go to work in the community in the service of others, which, by the way, is the road to a championship season in 2021. Looking back, every generation of America has experienced darkness. We've experienced slavery, a war with ourselves, disease, the Spanish flu, polio, 2 world wars, race riots, 9/11, and the financial crisis. And in 2020, well, we all know the story and the darkness because we all lived through it. There's been and always will be darkness, and there has been and always will be those who pursue the light, who live in the light. They are the light. February is Black History Month. In celebration of Black History Month and with the darkness of our day in mind, I wanted to remind all of us of the road that leads to the light. Martin Luther King offered a roadmap to the light when he profoundly proclaimed, everybody can be great because everybody can serve. Martin Luther King's transcendent, simple message reminds us of several transcendent truths. That all men and women were created in the image of God. Black, brown, white, rich, poor, left or right, believer or not. All men and women were created in the image of God, and all men and women have a choice to choose the light or to choose the dark. We started this program with a montage of all of the darkness we all experienced in 2020. It represented very real pain and significant trials. But what if, instead of focusing on the darkness, we choose instead to focus on the light? The bravery of our frontline healthcare workers, the development of a vaccine in record time, the financial recovery that's already happening, and the banner year, fortunately, that we all experienced in housing. What if instead of just focusing on the challenges of coronavirus, we focused on the light? We had more time with our families. We had more time with our pets, more time to exercise. We had more time to focus on what matters most, getting in shape, mind, body, and spirit. I hope and pray that today's episode has encouraged you, inspired, and challenged you to do just that. We already are 2 months into 2021, but it's not too late to start today to make this your best year ever, to truly build a championship season in 2021 at home, in the workplace, everywhere, with everyone. Best is waiting. I look forward to meeting you there.